the artist is possessed by a vision which is precisely this, nothing less than this. It is the vision of the New Jerusalem. It is the vision of the kingdom of heaven on earth. And where the war begins between the artist and the society is precisely here. It is only the artist, as distinguished from the priest, the psychoanalyst, the Pope. It is only the artist who has really given us any sense of what it is like to be alive, to be trapped, and to glory in this fact that one is forever, or for a very short time, I mean both things at once, between that sky and this earth, and you came from someplace, you're going someplace else, you don't know where you're going, and you don't know where you came from, and what it feels like to be here and to triumph in it. The artist has given us his record. And the war is a very strange war when you begin to realize that the reason the artist is possessed by the vision of the New Jerusalem is not at all because he is a dreamer. And not at all because he's unrealistic. His vision is based on what he has seen of human beings. What one sees of them. What one sees of another proves that people can be better than they are. This is all any artist has ever been trying to say. And the collision occurs because people would like to be better than they are, but don't wish to see themselves revealed, and don't wish to have their deepest intimations, their deepest suspicions concerning what they could be and what they could do. They don't wish to have these suspicions confirmed because the effort is mighty. One of the reasons that we have invented God is simply on the most basic and also the most base and the most tribal level to justify our failures. God expands as we expand. I don't think I had to spell out to any of you the fearful crimes which have been committed and are being committed all over the world and in this country as we stand here in the name of God. Now the artist, no matter how he sounds, is by definition a religious man, believing that we can create and transcend all our gods, that it is entirely up to us, it is the work of human beings to make the world more human. This is the demand that the artist makes of his society, which society inevitably, unfailingly, and always resists. Resists because it knows that it could do it, but prefers to believe that what it can see and touch is more real than what it knows and feels at that moment, for example, when the baby is born. The role of the artist, the responsibility of the artist, is to make you respect that moment above all other moments. to recognize that there is nothing under heaven, no creed and no flag and no cause more important than the single human life. I'm a street boy, and I know some terrible, terrible people. Racketeers, whores, gangsters, and people much worse than that, and so have you. And yet, in all these people, and it wasn't always easy to reach. Sometimes it was impossible to reach. Sometimes when we recognized it negatively, because the cat or the chick cursed you out in a certain way. In all these people, if one struck a certain nerve, a certain moment, something happened. And what happened for a moment was that they realized, they accepted, and they rejoiced in the fact that they were human and that they were alive. We've all seen this. It is one of the reasons that no one has the right to stand in moral judgment on the life of another, because you don't know what you would have done if you'd gone that road. This is a very important matter in this country now, especially in this country now, because we have been, it seems to me, for so many generations, so misled and even so maligned. For example, it has simply never been true that the country was settled by heroes and martyrs. That simply is not true. It has never been true that we were a happy people. In San Francisco, where I was the other day, where they had thousands of successful people who have the highest suicide rate in the world. What is true is that, in fact, the country was settled as all things are done, as all human things are achieved, awkwardly, with pain, with sweat, and with vast injustice, by a handful of people from Europe who had reasons of their own for leaving Europe. And the reason for leaving Europe was not because they wanted to be free. They had other reasons. And this sounds, I suppose, very hostile. But something awful happens to a people if they make of their history a myth. The Irish came here, for example, because they were starving. That's why. There may be one or two Irishmen, or 3 or 4 Irishmen, or whatever, came for some other more noble reason. But in fact, the country was settled by people who had excellent reasons for living where they were. And where they were was worse than where they found themselves. And when they closed the door on the European past, this is part of the American drama now, they thought they had buried the past. It is why, until today, no American dares look back. The only people who came here for other reasons, who didn't want to come here at all, never dreamed of it, were my ancestors. Now, the weird paradox is this, and I'm still trying to give you some sense, or my sense anyway, of what the moral responsibility of an artist is. It isn't so much, that here we came, I mean the Europeans, people from heaven. That's what the Indians called them the first time they saw them, and how right they were. The people from heaven came here and killed off the Indians. And they killed off the Indians in very dishonorable ways. By treachery, by lies, by murder. But I'm not complaining, for example, about that. I am complaining about the fact that one pretends it didn't happen. And we have endless TV shows, as far as I can tell, 7 nights a week to prove it didn't happen. That's the crime. If you don't know where you came from, then you don't know where you are, and you can't find out where you're going. The second thing these freedom-loving people did was enslave the black man because they needed cheap labor. Well, okay. People are doing that for centuries too. But as far as I can judge from what I read and what I see, this never happened either. Negroes liked it. Until today, until this moment, and I'm not kidding, following the crisis in the liberal conscience, is that somewhere he always assumed that you were grateful for being rescued from Africa and being brought at the point of a rifle to the foot of the cross. Now what I'm after, you see, since I'm trying now to speak as an artist, I'm compelled, I must know that I'm going to write a sentence. Delusion from something resembling truth. If I had ever accepted the American version of American history, I would be at the bottom of a river. There'd be no other place for me to go. And as long as Americans accept this peculiar version of American history, they are uneasy and lost and lonely in the world. One of the terrible facts of the national life, by which I mean the private life, something for example Mr. Faulkner knew, and this is one of the things that killed him, is that if the American white man, cannot make friends with me, if the American white man pretends that he's not also my brother and my sister and my ancestor, unless he is willing to accept his only real connection, repeat, his only real connection, he will always be the loneliest man on earth. The Europeans do not understand Americans at all. At all. The only people in the world who do, the only people in the world who understand Americans are what we like to refer to as a darker brother. That's me. And I understand you because I've had to watch you, outwit you, I change your diapers, I serve your brandy. I've known what you were frightened of when you called me nigger. I had to know it if I was going to live. speaking again as a man tries to work with words, and principally as a novelist. When you're at the typewriter and you're trying to create, to make alive, to make vivid a character, the most terrible thing you have to do, the first most terrible thing, is to accept the fact that in some peculiar way this character, whom you may or may not admire, you probably don't admire, came floating up out of you. And this creation testifies to something about you. And your responsibility as a man and as an artist is to face the fact that what you invent says more about you than it can possibly say about anything else. Your responsibility as an artist and as a man is to come as close as possible, and the gap is always irreducible, to close the gap between what you see and what there is, which you ever come to the principle again of being disinterested. So that if this were the guillotine and I know that I knew that I was about to perish on it, I would be under the obligation to say, this is the guillotine. But it won't cease being the guillotine if I say it isn't. Now the people who invented the nigger and who are still wrestling with the nigger and who have arrived at a moral chaos so sinister that in this country, in 1963, we can still see dogs turned on children, hoses turned on children. This is a lapse from reality, which could lead us where it led Germany. I want to repeat that. There's such a thing. If you abdicate as a human being, and your responsibility as a human being is to treat other people as human beings, if you abdicate from that, there is no end to the labyrinth and the abyss in which you can find yourself. When you are at the typewriter creating somebody, you've got to realize, no matter what crimes you committed, that it could be you. And in order to make it vivid, you have to try to examine those motives in yourself of which you are most ashamed and most terrified. Because otherwise, you will not create a character, you will create a point of view. And that is not what fiction is for. What one is trying to do now here is suggest to the American people that there is no reason whatever to be ashamed of the past, and no way whatever in any case to escape it. A field of paradox has happened in this country which no one seems to have noticed. Black men in this country know what poets since Homer have known, that life is tragic. Life is tragic because the sun rises and the sun sets. The world turns. Everything changes. If you're not prepared to lose everything, then you never will have anything. This is what is meant when somebody sings the blues. It means you can't hold it, but it's nice to have for, the time you've got it. It's nice to know it's there, even when it isn't yours anymore, because it never is yours. It's life. Conrad said, woe to the man who puts not his trust in life. The Negro in this country represents that level of experience which we find in Oedipus Rex, and which Americans thought they had escaped when they crossed the ocean. And their attempt to escape it, they have become very dangerously adolescent. I'll try to spell that out. The country which calls itself the moral leader of the free world will really have to become so. The great hangover here is the doctrine of white supremacy. And that's gotten tangled up in the American viscera with all kinds of other things. Now, if we can establish this wedding, or rather, if we can legalize this child, we can begin to grow up. If we can't manage to accept what we have done and what we are doing, we're going to destroy our children. And that'll be the destruction of the country. The values that we live by are not real values. The real values are when a kid trusts you, for example. That's a real value. That means something. But to be a young exec is not a real value. A country which pretends that it is possible to get to be 70 and still be innocent is in great danger. There's a line from Nietzsche I'd like to leave with you. It describes my situation at the moment. I think it describes our situation at the moment. He said, I stand before my highest mountain and before my longest journey, and therefore must I descend deeper than I have ever before descended. That is where we are. What we must descend into is a sea of human experience. We must cease trying to be a collection of virgins and try to bob up into the great light of human responsibility. Thank you.